Check and make sure.
Yeah, that looks good. I can see that everything you're doing.
Okay, cool.
It doesn't say you're muted, right? No, it says, yeah,
It doesn't quite reach. Try to set this whole part of it.
So I reached for my thing, and then I realized and I know that, right? So I'm sitting here, I'm going to read this, and I have no idea. I probably got me.
All right, I guess that's good enough.
He said, she says, I did not realize. Please stop. It was red.
Okay,
there you go. Yep.
all right. We've got Brett ready to go. So we will let him do his introductions and get started. We've already started the recording, so go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Brett Ragazine. I'm a data scientist. My background is in astrophysics. So data itself is very important to me, to have clean data, lots of it. And I'll tell you what I did for the air quality project. So I'm not totally sure who all is in the audience or watching on Hangout, but I wanted to put some slides that I hadn't seen before showing the nastiness of the air quality. So some reasons why I wanted to work on the air quality project. First question, who or what is at risk by the poor air quality in Utah? So some of the I thought about were the people who live here. And I thought, well, animals are people too, so I've put animals on my slide. This can affect our health, our quality of life, some number of annual deaths, and besides that, it could also affect employees maybe taking extra sick days that they might not have otherwise had to take with better air quality. Hospitalizations, maybe insurance payouts, so affecting the economy and not just human life. So who can help out with this problem? Well, there are actual air quality experts who work on this, maybe some research scientists. Since I come from a university background, I know some people would be working on this for their career or helping students. There are also companies who can create products and make money by working on this problem, and also any other interested persons like myself or anybody in this room. So what can somebody do to help out? Well, I chose to gather data as much as I possibly could in a short period of time. And then what would somebody do with this data? Well, following the scientific method, one would want to ask a question or form a hypothesis, create some models, look for any patterns that they could, find correlations or causations, and then ultimately, if a model is good, it will be able to make predictions, and then we can act on what we can foresee, and then we can see if those things come to pass. If we need to reform a hypothesis, we can do that and repeat the process. So the thing that I have at the bottom, the last bullet, is I think that the more people that work on a problem or a project, It benefits everybody if each person can contribute something, great or small, then everybody can benefit, because if I, for example, try to do the whole thing by myself, I won't get very far. I don't have all the data, I don't have all the expertise, but if I work with other people, then our combined efforts can go a long way. So what are the difficulties and or the costs for collecting data? Well, trying to gather it, if you are gathering it real time, it's slow. And we have a big problem. We would like to use any previous data that has been collected, so we don't just have to start now. And also, the equipment is expensive, or at least the time is expensive. So expense could also go into paying people to set up the equipment, to gather the data, make sure it's clean, make sure it's accurate and usable. And gathering data into a single location can be difficult if a person does not have the technical skill to do it, say a university student, or anybody really who's more interested in actually doing the research and not doing the data collection. And also having the skill to make it usable is really important. I've listed the 3 groups of data that I collected from different websites. So the first one is called the Air Quality DataMart, and I collected data from 1984 until September. And from the EPA, I collected data sets back from 1980, so about 34 years there. And a PCAPS, persistent cold air pool study, that looked like it was over the winter from 2010 to 2011. So what I did is I gathered all of these files, put them into one place, made sure that all of the data was easily accessible. They're all in CSV format or comma-separated values. And this is good because anybody without any technical skill can still open it up in a spreadsheet. It can also be easily loaded into a database and parsed for analysis. Here are some of the species of data that were in the Air Quality DataMart. So also note that there is overlapping data that was taken daily and also hourly. So at a high level view, if you just want daily averages or whatever, that's available. And then if you need to go down to hourly, that's available. So one thing that I especially liked in here was the wind speed and direction. So that is captured in this data set. Ozone, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, the list goes on. And there are hundreds of more species that have been measured. Particular note are the PM2.5, which is the has the greatest contribution to our health. There's also some map data that can be overlaid. Those are KML files, if that's useful to anybody. Here's the list of PM2.5 that I found in the Air Quality DataMart. I had no idea that all of these were PM2.5, so I was pretty blown away that all these can cause health problems.
What is the technology that Selenium is up there you go.
Let me bring the microphone over to you today. So from the EPA data, some of the same gases are repeated. That's good for making sure the measurements are accurate. There's also wind and temperature measurements, pressure, RH and dew point. Some of these I actually don't know what they mean or how they're used. For example, so there are some PM 2.5 measurements. They separate them into FRM mass, which I don't know what that is, but somebody does, and that's the important part. PM10, mass, and other speciation. Also, toxics and lead. I looked up some of these AJPs and the VOCs. I don't remember what they stand for now. There's also some high-level annual summary stuff in the EPA data. I thought this one was interesting. At specific sites around Utah, they take measurements on just a single species. So I captured all of these for carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide all the way back to 1980. And there are more species that are available. I just ran out of time trying to get all of these. There are about 4 other species that are available on that site. So PCAPS, this looks like it was a university project. It's on the University of Utah website, and it looks like one student collected this data. This is for the polar cold, what did I say, polar something. Anyway, we can look it up again if you have a question. So these were taken in 3 different locations, and it was a student who climbed up Grandeur Peak, Harker's Ridge, and Bingham Canyon Mine, and he had with him a GPS device and some kind of an altimeter. He mentions in his notes what the elevation was at all of his data measurements, and that his 2 devices did not measure the same altitude all the time. One would say that it was higher than the other, and it kind of went back and forth. So he gave his error estimations on that. So in the Bingham Canyon Mine, he recorded temperature as well as humidity. So what can be accomplished with this data? Well, in my mind, the things that I would try to do, I'd first approach some kind of a time series, look for any kind of a correlation between species, see if one thing is causing another. We don't have control over what the weather is going to do, or how to really control one species to see if it affects another, but we can look for correlations. And again, the wind speed and the direction, I think that's really important, because something that I wanted to do was check what the measurements might be, say around the freeway, and if the sensor measurements were high or low, high around rush hour, and maybe unexpectedly low during rush hour, and checking the wind speed if the wind were really strong during that time and pushing the car pollution away. That would be something interesting to look at. So again, the PM 2.5 for health problems, specifically cardiac and pulmonary. And then one of the biggest things that I believe that I've done to contribute to the competition is saving time, people's time and research dollars from anybody else going out and collecting this information. So specifically, if multiple groups are going to do some similar research, and they all had to go out and try to find this, there was time per person that would have to go, click download, wait for it to download. You're basically limited to how many downloads you can do at once. You also have to create accounts at some of these different websites to get the data that you want. So that has all been taken care of, and all that time is saved. So basically, to summarize, all of this data is in hand, it's clean, it's ready to be worked on, loaded into a database, whatever is the most convenient for somebody to work on. There are hundreds of source files. I wish I had looked carefully at how many data points there were. Compressed, the data is about 6 gigs. So uncompressed, it's probably around 30 gigs or so. And that's easily hundreds of thousands of data points and possibly around 1 million. So that's a lot of data that can be explored. So that's the end of my talk. I'm happy to entertain any questions. Yes, sir.
So, it sounds like you just getting some serious, but collecting all these, did you kind of take it all the way to dropping into, is it just dropping it onto HDFS, or did you do any sort of tables on top of that, or anything like that? Or not?
Right now it's all in zip files. The last time I tried to get onto a different cluster, it wasn't up or something.
We can do that on this big data side again as well.
So at the moment it's ready to be shared by anybody who wants to grab it and put it somewhere.
And our intent is to get that up on OpenCivic as well. It's just a matter of fitting 6 gigs up in one spot and all the pieces.
And it'll be more after it's unzipped.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and breaking it apart. So, but yeah, there's a lot of data there. That's very helpful.
So let me go back to a previous slide. The folders, I separated everything into these 3 groups for the Air Quality DataMart, EPA, and the PCAPS. And then, like in each of those, especially this one. So I have, like, if you knew that you were interested in like the wind measurements, you'd be able to easily go into the right folder and find that.
Did the PCAPS end up sick or anything?
So to restate, did the University of Utah student get sick after he did this? He didn't say. So at least he lived long enough to turn in his project.
Hopefully with a passing grade.
Yeah.
So while you were collecting this, did you kind of build a repertoire of here's how to get things out fast and how to search and how to tips and tricks?
Yeah, so the question is, I think you're asking, did I get better at collecting the data while I was going? Yeah, definitely. So when I was on one of the sites, like the EPA, yeah, once I got into the rhythm of like which drop-down things do you pick, and yeah, my fingers kind of got their own muscle memory, and they were going on the keyboard as fast as they could. So I wish that I had, well, if I had spread the load over more computers, then I could have downloaded a lot more stuff. Because you're basically limited to about 6 downloads at a time, I think, at least on my laptop. So yeah, there is more to grab. Yeah.
Was there a reason you chose these specific data sets?
I was not. Okay, the question is, was I looking specifically for these data sets? So I was not looking for anything in particular except for what I could do in the short amount of time that I felt that I had that would make the biggest impact. So I found a lot of sites that had like maybe a PDF with some good information, and while I thought it would be useful to scrape that somehow and put it into tables, I didn't want to spend hours maybe getting nothing out of it. So these sites were great. They had some easy ways to download, and so I just tried to get everything I could. And it was all clean. It was in a very nice format, and I didn't have to restructure anything. And I thought that was the best part.
So how much of this did you get from the state's data versus what you got from Sweet?
How much did I get from the state's data? So all of what I found was already in some kind of an easy-to-download format. So I didn't actually do any scraping. I didn't write the scripts to do that. That is something that I'm very interested in doing. But again, once I found, I thought I was going to have to do that stuff. And then once I found these, then I just stuck with it. If I had run out, I would have looked to something else and then maybe tried to figure out how to scrape it.
Any correlations or relations of key variables or key factors? Any elimination in that area?
And
from the data set?
Did I look in there for any correlations yet?
I'm just curious if you got a chance to.
No, I wish I. That's what I love to do. So, yeah, I did not.
Your charter was just to collect the data.
Yes.
Make it available. That was your charter.
Are there any data sets that you thought it would be nice to have, but you just didn't get to it or ran out of time?
You know, I was really happy with what I did find, and it covered a lot more than I even thought was being measured or gathered by anybody. So that was pretty awesome. One of the very slow points was on the EPA site here that lets you collect or download by Utah site. It only lets you download one file at a time. So that was painfully slow. So you would basically select the pollutant, select, I think, the year and the state, and then you'd say, go retrieve it, and you'd have to wait for it to pop up a link for you to download that. So I would wait, you know, maybe less than a minute, maybe a few minutes per file. And so I tried to run stuff on that one site plus on another site, so I wasn't competing because I was afraid that it would cancel my query or something. I didn't know what it was going to do. So that's the main reason why this particular set is so small. But like I said, there are about 4 other pollutants, and all of those years go back to about 1980. So those could be really nice. There was lead is one that I remember. There were some other ones that I didn't really know what they were. Yeah.
Is your data restricted to just the Salt Lake Valley, or is it throughout Utah?
So is this restricted to Salt Lake or throughout Utah? Some of it is definitely limited to Salt Lake, like the one guy, the student who climbed these locations. Some of these other sets came from the EPA, which had data from around the whole country. So I don't know exactly where that would be, but if it's in Utah, I mean, I can only guess that there's going to be probably mostly in Salt Lake and Utah counties, but also hopefully down around St. George, maybe. I don't know. So the most important part for us would be, you know, the air quality in these valleys where all of the particulates get trapped. But it would be very interesting to still compare it to other locations around. Yep. Especially like with the weather affecting what the measurements might be in one spot, or if it gets pushed by the wind to some other spot that hour. Would be very interesting.
So you were filtering, like when you did EPA though and stuff, you were filtering on Utah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it could be all over the state, but it is Utah.
Yes,
yeah.
It's definitely Utah, and with little effort, a person could just look in there and see where these measurements were taken. So a lot of them had latitude, longitude. So yeah, it'd be very easy to see where those were.
Other questions?
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop this.